Sandy Weill, the architect of Citigroup and probably the guy more responsible than any other for the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which stopped commercial and investment banks being under the same roof, now thinks it should go the other way. He wants banks broken up. It's a bit of a shocker, Agnes. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a bit of a shocker, but I mean, again, it's really interesting. I mean, again, this was in an interview with CNBC, and, you know, at no point is he apologetic, you know, for what, you know, his role would be.
Quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite, exactly.
It was right for the time.
It was right for the time, but the times
have
changed.
90s, yes.
Exactly. But, you know, again, I think, you know, him coming out on this is also like, it's been percolating there on you know, across the political spectrum of people saying that, you know, what we have right now is not working. Maybe it's time for something simpler and just separate the banks, make them smaller, and then we can kind of move on.
That's kind of interesting, Anthony, right there, because it's kind of a good solution, or people think it's a good solution if you don't think Dodd-Frank goes far enough, and if you think it goes too far.
Yeah, I mean, I think as Agnes is saying in the piece, one of the things we think here is that everything is sort of coalescing around this very idea, and to have someone who was, as you said, the architect of the whole too big to fail movement in many respects say maybe it's time to stop it. It's quite intriguing. I mean, you've got people from across the political spectrum, whether you like their politics or not, whether they're in the industry or not. A lot of them are saying Dodd-Frank just doesn't go where we want it to go.
Well, I mean, so there's a couple of reasons why that is, right? One, it's huge and complicated, and people think it's stifling the banks. And Sandy's argument, I think, is if we split them up, they can be innovative again, get some freedom.
And again, I think right now, in the current environment we're in, you cannot talk about innovation on Wall Street because of the way things are, and because customer deposits are at risk. The point that he's making, like rightly or wrongly, is like if you separate it out, it's easier to basically do what you need to do as an investment bank. But again, doesn't really get into, and Anthony, you've talked about this before as well, is just, okay, it's all good and well to say let's separate them, but how is that going to work? How are they going to fund the investment banks? I mean, there's a whole host of questions.
How are you going to make sure investment banks don't blow up? Because
although I mean, the idea there, which you got in Dodd-Frank, which is not a bad thing, but they're having trouble getting this to work, I think, at the moment, is the holiday of living wills. So if you can actually make sure that a non-deposit taking institution can fail and just take down shareholders and bondholders, there's a way to unwind it without actually ruining the system. That's fine, and something is already in place. So leverage is lower, off-balance sheet items are much harder to do. Although again, Sandy Weill was saying off-balance sheet items are terrible things to have, and he ran Citigroup, which had 20, 30, 40 billion of special investment vehicles. But you know, we can make fun of him all day. But the thing is, he's now having such a big convert. And, well, we will. but having such a convert to the cause out there is very difficult to ignore. Whether you believe this is the right way to go or not, it's a difficult thing to ignore.
No, in some ways, we need to be having this discussion. And is it possible? And we should move it forward. And I think that's kind of where we are now. People are going to have to start really thinking about, okay, let's take a look at some of these big banks, which are also very powerful banks like JP Morgan. Is it possible, and how would you actually do it?
Yeah. So we'll leave it there. We'll follow Sandy Weill's U-turn and the whole idea of breaking up the banks, and we'll have more breaking views tomorrow.